Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you on this platform. So, without taking much time, let's get started with the session today. In today's session, we'll be discussing some questions which are based on. In the previous session, we did discuss some questions which were based on four sentence type, right? So, in today's session, we'll be discussing 5 sentence type questions and 6 sentence type questions to give you an overview about how these questions do come in exam and how can you become a pro at it, right? How can you solve them? How can you strategize these questions? So let's get started with the session and let's see which one of the following. So in the beginning we'll be starting with 5 sentence type. So let's get started and see what questions do come in 5 sentence type. Now, you see there are sentences given and you have to arrange these 5 sentences, and the options, in the options also you will see 5 sentences given, right? It's quite complicated because the moment the questions, there are a lot of questions, there are a lot of sentences in a sentence, it becomes quite difficult for the aspirants to assemble it properly to make a coherent paragraph, because a lot of keywords are given there. But still the strategy remains the same. We don't have to be scared of anything, whether it be 6 sentence type, 5 sentence type. Always remember, you have to strategize things, because it is totally based on the tricks and the strategies which we discussed previously in the very first session of Parajumbles. Okay, so let's get started with the session and let's see how we are going to solve this. So let me just quickly read it for you. So occupation absorbs time and energy so as we choose to give them. It demands constant initiative and it is its own reward for the average person. The element of necessity in work is valuable, for his is saved the mental stress involved in devising outlets for his energy. A distinction should be made between work and occupation. Work has for him obviously utility and it brings the satisfaction of tangible rewards, whereas occupation is an end in itself and we therefore demand that it shall be agreeable. Work is usually the means to other ends, which present themselves to the mind as sufficiently important to compensate for any disagreeableness in the means. Work implies necessity. It is something that must be done as contributing to the means of life in general and to one's own subsistence in particular. This is the overall meaning. These are the sentences. Okay. Now see, we will go through the words. When we see option number in our sentence number B, we see we are talking about what? Work and occupation, right? These are two keywords, where keyword work is explained in option number E. Work implies necessity. It is something that must be done contributing to the means of life in general and to the one subsistence in particular, right? And therefore thereafter you see occupation is described in sentence A. Occupation absorbs time and energy so long as we choose to give them. It demands constant initiatives and it is in its own reward for the average person. An element of necessity in work is valuable, for his is saved the mental stress involved in devising outlets for his energy. There are two descriptions of work and occupation, right? Therefore mandatory pair becomes what? Mandatory pairs are, first comes B, where we are discussing about work and occupation, then we are describing about verb, then we are describing about occupation, BEA. So where do we find this arrangement? This is in option number A. So the correct answer becomes BEAC and lastly D. D is clearly evident because therefore word is mentioned here and we are kind of concluding it. So BEACD is the correct answer. Next question. The implication is not the that machines are generally assuming human forms, but that there is no sharp break of continuity between what is human, what is mechanical. The mode of communication is very similar in both the cases, so much so that computers can now be designed to generate artificial human speech and even by accident to produce sequences of words which human beings recognize as poetry. Furthermore, brains and computers can both be organized as to solve problems. The comparison does not depend upon any close resemblance between actual mechanical links which occur in brain and computers. It depends on what the machines do. It is undeniable that some very useful analogies can be drawn between the relational systems of computer mechanism and the relational systems of brain mechanism. Now, if you closely watch, we will move from general to specific. This type of a sentence is based on general to specific, right? Now, in general to specific, you see in sentence number E, we are generally talking about, it is undeniable that some useful analogies can be drawn between the relational systems of computer mechanism, relational systems of brain mechanism. Clearly, right? Now, it talks about computer and brain in general, the mechanism of it. And thereafter, you see in the sentence D talks about the comparison. The comparison does not depend upon any close resemblance between these two. It depends on what the machines do. Sentence D follows, and the moment you are able to pair these two, you see we have options here, and in these options only B makes an option which states ED, and further it will be C, B and A. So it's not complicated, it's just that you have to have an eye of which begins your sentence and what follows it thereafter. Okay, moving to the next one. Even the breaking of barriers right than a piece of real cinema. Possibly one is asking for a different film which in the end would not have appealed across the box office spectrum as well as this obviously does, but still one leaves it vaguely disappointed. All that work and just a mouse that roars. It's a wonderful story but told with more efficiency than inspiration, possibly a sign of times, along with the merchandising spree which follows it so readily. Jurassic Park is more of a roller coaster ride than a piece of real cinema. It delivers but only on a certain plane. It is clear that sentence D is an obvious opener, right? Sentence D clearly states that it's an obvious opener. Now, which option do we have in that case? Within fraction of seconds, you are able to understand B, E, D, E, A, B, C makes the correct arrangement. And here we go. Next. And when they travel, they are surprised to find the savages and Esquimaux and villagers who have to make everything for themselves are more intelligent and resourceful. The wonder be if they were anything else. It's a funny place, this world of capitalism, with its astonishing spread of education and enlightenment. We should die of idiocy through disuse of our mental faculties if we did not fill our heads with romantic nonsense out of illustrated newspapers and novels and plays and films. Such stuff keeps us alive, but it falsifies everything for us so absurdly that it leaves us more or less dangerous lunatics in the real world. There stand the thousands of property owners, millions of wage workers, none of them able to make anything, none of knowing what to do until somebody tells them, none of them having the least notion of how it is made, that they find people paying them money and things in the shops to buy it. Right? Now you see, in sentence E and A is together a mandatory pair as it talks about contrasting people behavior with conjunction and. There stand the thousands of property owners, millions of wage workers, none of them able to make anything, none of knowing what to do until somebody tells them, none of them having the least notion how it is made, that they find people paying them money and things in the shops to buy with it, right? So E is a pair with and. When they travel, they are surprised to find savages and Esquimaux and villagers who have to make everything for themselves and more intelligent and resourceful. The wonder would be if they were anything else. E and A is a pair, right? Now, because E and A is a pair, what do you think is makes the first statement, or what follows here? We are talking about people's behavior, you know. Therefore, we will try to find out where is this E and A pairing up. EA, AC, ACB, AC. E and A is pairing up only in this part. Clearly a sign that B, E, A, C, D is my correct order. Next, children with poor phonological skills progress more poorly. Children who have good phonological skills or good phonological awareness become good readers and good spellers. The consensus concerns the casual role of phonological skills in young children. Reading progress. Studies of the factors governing reading development in young children have achieved a remarkable degree of consensus over the past 2 decades. In particular, those who have a specific phonological deficit are likely to be classified as dyslexic by the time they are 9 or 10 years old. Yeah, it's a very common concern everywhere these days. So herein we move from general to specific again. You see, D is an obvious opener. D is an obvious opener where it talks about what? It talks about remarkable degree over the past 2 decades, right? Now, D is the obvious opener and the keyword is consensus. Consensus is the keyword which is further talked about in C. Generalized, specific, concerns the casual role of. So clearly D and C is a pair and we have DC pair only in option number C. Hence your correct arrangement is D, C, B, A. Quickly just read once and try to analyze how this one is making a correct pair. I'm just giving you some time to read so that you are able to analyze. Okay, let's move to the next one. The next question says, however obvious Galileo's contention may appear in the light of our present knowledge, it remains a fact that the Greeks, in spite of their proficiency in geometry, never seem to have realized the importance of experiment. Galileo was the first scientist to recognize clearly that the only way to further out understanding of the physical world was to resort to experiment. Still, an excuse of this sort can scarcely be put forward when the elementary nature of Galileo's experiment and observations is recalled. To a certain extent, this may be attributed to the crudeness of their instruments of measurement. Modern science, exclusively of geometry, is a comparatively recent creation and can be said to have originated with Galileo and Newton. Clearly, sentence B and E is a mandatory pair, and because B and E is a mandatory pair, I can state that modern science exclusively of geometry is comparatively recent creation can be said have originated with Galileo and Newton. So E comes first and B comes next, and E and B is only given in one of the options, which is option number A. So E, B, A, D, C makes the correct arrangement. Please read it out and try to form an understanding, develop an understanding how these words are used. You see, however, false scientist, still an excuse, nature of Galileo's experiments is recalled. Just connect with each other. Just read it out once. Done. Moving to the next one. The next question says, he explained that the pillars of tribalism that humans rely on for security would always counter any significant cultural or social change. Recently, I spent several hours sitting under a tree in my garden with the social anthropologist William Ury, a Harvard University professor who specializes in the art of negotiation and wrote the best selling book, Getting to Yes. He captivated me with the theory that tribalism protects people from the fear of rapid change. In this way, he said change is never allowed to happen too fast. Technology, for example, is a pillar of society. Urey believes that every time technology moves in a way or radical direction, another pillar such as religion or nationalism will grow stronger. In effect, the traditional and familiar will assume greater importance to compensate for the new and untested. In this question, you see B is an obvious opener. Recently, I spent these many hours with this person. B is an obvious opener, right? Which talks about William Ury in the following in the coming paragraph. Now, sentence C follows. Sentence C follows with sentence C follows sentence B as it talks about what the author talked about in general. And further, B and C together makes a mandatory pair and makes a complete arrangement as BCAD. Please read it once. Okay, I hope you are able to connect. Next question. What identity is thus defined by contrast? Divergence with the West becomes central. Indian religious literature such as Bhagavad Gita or the Tantric texts, which identify as differing from secular writings seen as Western, elicits much greater interest in the West than do other Indian writings, including India's long history of heterodoxy. There is a similar neglect of Indian writing or non-religious subjects from mathematics, epistemology and natural science to economics and linguistics. Through selective emphasis that point up differences with the West, other civilizations can in this way be redefined in alien terms, which can be exotic and charming, or else bizarre and terrifying, or simply strange and engaging. The exception is the Kama Sutra, in which Western readers have managed to cultivate an interest. So here you see from the options, it can be ascertained that B is the opening statement where it talks about Indian religious literature and explains great interest then, and C is the natural antecedent to B. C is a natural antecedent to B, where a similar neglect has been talked about. Hence, D is the correct option, which makes it opposite to each other. So the sentence, if I say so, in that case, in that sense, if I say B is definitely the beginner, but not followed by C. What is followed is it will be followed by D. D selective emphasis, right? D follows by E, C, and lastly A. Please read it. Cool. Moving to the next one. Okay. Uh, did I change the slide? Sorry. Okay. Question number 9. Now, the wall does not simply divide Israel from a putative Palestinian state on the basis of the 1967 borders. A chilling omission from the roadmap is the gigantic separation wall now being built in the West Bank by Israel. It is surrounded by trenches, electric wire, and moats. There are watchtowers at regular intervals. It actually takes new tracts of Palestinian and sometimes 5 or 6 kilometers at a stretch. Almost a decade after the end of South Africa apartheid, this ghastly racist wall is going up with scarcely a peep from Israel's American allies, who are going to pay for most of it. You see, A and D is a mandatory pair. The wall does not simply divide Israel from a putative Palestinian state on the basis of 1967 borders. It actually takes new tracts of Palestinians, sometimes 5-6 kilometers at a stretch. A and D is a pair. Now you just have to check where is this pair located. Definitely not here. C eliminated. Now moving understanding this further, uh, this wall of E should all followed by A, D and C. This wall of E, this wall, this ghastly racist wall should be followed by C. It is surrounded by trenches, electric wires at regular intervals, and further this wall. So the correct answer is definitely B, D, A, C, E, option number B. Please go through it once. Just read it out quickly. Okay, let's move to the next question. Now, this face-off will continue for several months given the strong convictions on other side, says a senior functionary of the high-powered task force on drought. During the past week and a half, the central government has sought to deny some of the earlier apprehensions over the impact of drought. The recent revival of the rains had led to the emergence of a line of divide between the two. The state governments, on the other hand, alleged that the centre is downplaying the crisis only to evade its full responsibility of financial assistance that is required to alleviate the damage. Shrill alarm about the economic impact of an adequate monsoon has been sounded by the centre as well as most of the states in late July and early August. Now you see, clearly here option E is the start of the paragraph. Shrill alarm about the economic impact of an adequate monsoon had been sounded by centre as well as most of the states in late July and early August, referring to time as well. Okay, now you see that C continues with the temporal reference, right? The recent revival of the rains had led to the emergence of a line divide between the two, but there definitely is not directly connecting with it. So which one is going to connect with if it is E, right? E is the pair. C continues with temporal. So BD gives the specific opinions of two parties. So B and D is somewhat pairs. I can consider them as pairs, right? So BD because it's pair and E is the beginner. EBD. I can make a reference to C here, and lastly A. So this is my correct answer, option number ECBDA, which is in option number D, right? understanding further, just go through and okay. Let's move to the next question, which is a five sentence type. Now, this very insatiability of the photographing eye changes the terms of confinement in the cave our worlds. Humankind lingers regenerately in Plato's cave, still reveling its age-old habit in the merry images of truth. But being educated by photographs is not like being educated by older images drawn by hand. For one thing, there are a great many more images around claiming our attention. The inventory started in 1813, and since then, just about everything has been photographed, so it seems. In teaching us a new visual code, photographs later and enlarge our notions of what is worth looking at and what we have a right to observe. Now, here you see sentence number B is the opener, obvious opener. Opens the paragraph by introducing the motion of human beings drawing images in cave. C introduces the new means of image making, and because C introduces the image of caves making, becomes the next statement, that is photography. The inventory in D refers to the images in C, clearly, right? Everything has been photographed as stated in D, should be followed by insatiability. Confinement in A, then followed by D, and lastly E is the last one. So correct answer is option number C. Okay. Let's move to the next one. Next question says, since then intelligence tests have been mostly used to separate dull children in school from average to bright children, so that special education can be provided to the dull. In other words, intelligence is expressed, Binet developed. Intelligence can be measured by test. You see, just by reading these small little terms, are you able to figure out which one makes the first statement? Definitely. Intelligence can be measured by tests. E makes the first statement. Binet developed the first set of such tests in 90s. Time reference. To find out which children in school needed special attention. And then later on, since then, intelligent tests have been mostly used to separate dull children in school from average or bright, so that special education can be provided to the dull. Next statement would be A. Intelligence is expressed as intelligence quotient, and tests are developed to indicate what an average child of a certain age can do, what a 5-year can answer, but a 4-year cannot. For instance, for example, now comes the example. For example, in other words, intelligent test gives us a norm for each age. B. Okay, let's see if we have this arrangement here. Yeah, I guess so. Option number C. Next, the process of cultural eutrophication of lakes has been understood for some time. The nutrient enriched water flows through streams, rivers and lakes, and eventually to the estuary and ocean, where the ecological impact may be huge, killing virtually all invertebrates and fish in areas of 70,000 kilometers to in extent. Oceanic dead zones are typically associated with industrialized nations and usually lie off countries that subsidize their agriculture, encouraging farmers to increase productivity and use more fertilizer. But only recently did scientists notice huge dead zones in the oceans near river outlets, particularly those draining large catchment areas such as Mississippi in North America and Yangtze in China. More than 150 sea areas worldwide are now regularly starved of oxygen as a result of decomposition of algal blooms, fueled particularly by nitrogen from agricultural runoff of fertilizers and sewage from large cities. See, the first sentence itself says that we are talking about a process, right? So because we are talking about a process, A comes first. But only recently did scientists notice huge dead zones in the ocean near river outlets, particularly this, right? Then comes option number B, where we are talking about nutrient enriched water flows, and after this you have to decide which one of the following will come next. Clearly we can see that A and B is making my answer, right? ADB, EDB is an arrangement. But in C and E and E and C, we have to decide which one comes next. Definitely, we are talking about this C. We are talking about the kilometers here. 150 C areas worldwide, result of decomposition. This comes next. And lastly, we are talking about dead zones and fertilizers. ADBEC is the correct answer. Okay. Now let's solve some of the questions which are 6 sentence type. Very interesting as well. See, sentence number 1 is given. Sentence 6 is given. You just have to arrange these 4 sentences. In New York City, in faded elegance of Roosevelt Hotel under gilded chandeliers on April 29, 1980, Data General announced Eagle to the world. Then there was an impressive display in the dining hall, 128 terminal hooked up to a single eagle. On days immediately following in the other parts of the country and in Canada and Europe, the machine was presented to salesmen and customers, and some members of the Eclipse group went off and so-called road shows. There was a slick slideshow. There were speeches. About dozens of the team attended the big event in New York. The machine crashed during this part of the program, but no one except the company engineers noticed the problem was corrected so quickly and deftly. Now you see, sentence 1 and last, the introductory, obvious opener is there, the concluding statement is there. You just have to connect the rest of the statements given in between. So you see, particular day, then on days, then there was, about dozen. So you see how the arrangement will go. The arrangement will go from B to D to C to A. You have to basically arrange only 4 statements, but it should follow statement 1 and 6 clearly. So just see, just check once, just read it once and see if this is building a connection or not. Okay, let's move to the next question. Please solve on your own. Just read it out, what's given over here. Read the first and the last statement and just try to connect the rest of the 4 statements given here. DBAC, CABD, BDAC or BADC. Okay, I hope much enough time given. So you see here, in irrigation agriculture in which water is brought in to supply the needs of crops in an area with insufficient rainfall, a particular soil management problem that develops is the salinization, concentration of salts of the surface oil, right? Now you have to follow the chronology. Now the chronology here is that the next sentence which would connect would be option B. Effective drainage solves the problem. This is a problem, this is a management problem, and this solves the problem, right? And we have only two options here, so these two eliminated. Now in B, what follows? After B, what follows? D or C? Definitely, even through the water does not contain a large concentration. We are talking about a solution to the problem. Drainage also requires the availability of excess water to flush the salts. This is a solution and not this. So clearly B, D, A, B, D, A and C. Okay, this makes the correct answer. Next question. Take your time and answer first, and then I'll be discussing the answers to you. Just a minute's time, maybe. Okay, let's discuss this. So, the correct arrangement would be, the correct order would be, first of all, the essence of education I suggested is the transmission of values, but values do not help us to pick our way through life unless they have become our own, a part, so as to say, of our mental makeup. This means that they are more than merry formulae or dogmatic assertions that we think and we feel with them, that they are the very instruments through which we like and interpret and we experience the world. When we think, we do not just think, we think with ideas. Our mind is not a blank, a tabula rasa. When we begin think, we can do so only because our mind is already filled with sorts of ideas with which to think. And next, all through our youth and adolescence, before the conscious and critical mind begins to act as a sort of censor and guardian at the threshold, ideas weep into our mind, multitudes of them. So the correct arrangement is A, D, C, B. And these years are, which years? These years. These years are, one might say, our dark ages, during which we are nothing but inheritors. It is only later years that we gradually learn to sort out our inheritance. Next question. Okay, let's discuss quickly. Now you see, the mutual fund as we know it may be dead. It died of many things, dead, died of many things, and we have only one option which begins with B, which is BACD. This makes the correct answer. Next, the new technology is called bereavement counseling. Bereavement counseling, right? And it is a tool forged at the Great State University, an innovative technique to meet the needs of those experiencing the death of a loved one, a tool that can process the grief of the people who now live in the prairie of the soul. Again, only one option which begins with, and so it ends, they can upon the words of the clergy and surround themselves in community. Just go through it once. Next question. Philosophy is a word which has been used in many ways, some wider, some narrower, right? Now, you see, all definite knowledge, philosophy as I shall understand the word. So, what are you actually trying to say here? Trying to explain, right? Philosophy is being explained. So, in all the parameters, you see, when you read it, just read it once. When you read it, which I will now try to explain, this clarifies that the next statement from 1 will be D. Now, if the next statement is D, how is it going to follow? Again comes the philosophy, the term philosophy, which was introduced in sentence 1. So, B comes next, and we have only one option, which is B, DBAC. Please read ahead so that you are able to make a connection between these. Okay, now we have another question here, which is question number 7. Let's read it and understand. By the 1980s and early 1990s, the only nationally left, the Congress, had gone deeper into a siege mentality. So, here you see in question number 7, finding itself surrounded by state level parties, it had built walls against them instead of winning them over. Next, the states retaliated by blocking Congress proposals for Panchayati Raj in Parliament, suspecting the centre would try to use panchayats to bypass state governments. The suspicion fed on the fact that the powers proposed by the Congress for panchayats were very similar to many more of the lucrative powers of state governments. State level leaders also feared perhaps that if panchayat level leaders captured some of the larger PRIs, such as district level panchayats, they would exert pressure on state level leaders through intra state multi party federalism. It soon became obvious to Congress leaders that there was no way the Panchayati Raj amendments they wanted to write into the constitution which passed muster unless state level parties were given their pound of flesh. Please go through it and try to analyze how the statement is going to connect. So which of the following makes the correct answer? Now the correct answer will be A, B, C, D. It follows one after the another. Okay. So A, B, C, D is the correct statement. Now, okay, so I'll be leaving you with some of the questions which you should answer on your own. I'll be giving you answers in the end, but I want you to just read the questions and answer it on your own, so that you are able to understand that which makes the correct answer, right? I'm showing you the questions here. Take your time, pause, and then just answer yourself and test yourself how better you are in answering para jumbles. So question number 8, question number 9, pause and answer. Question number 10, 11. You have to be analyzing yourself clearly, okay? So please be on a self-analysis mode every time you answer any question. It helps in improving. 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so pause on each of the questions where I haven't discussed answers, because I want you to leave on your own and I want you to solve these questions on your own. Definitely I'll give you answers. Okay, so here I'll drop answers to you so that you can at least, you know, match your answers and see how correct you are. Question number 8, the answer is B. Question number 9, the answer is D. Question number 10, the answer is A. Question number 11, the answer is B. Question number 12, the answer is D. Question number 13, the answer is A. Question number 14, the answer is C. And question number 15, the answer is C again. Okay, so I hope you will be able to answer these questions and turn out to be, most of the answers turn out to be correct. I hope this session was fruitful to you, and these are the types of questions which usually comes in any of the competitive exam you appear for. Okay, so I hope you will be doing well, and keep solving, keep practicing, and make yourself better with each passing day. And do not forget to self analyze your questions and answers. Okay, even